What's going on, everybody? We got Mark Blakenbaker back again, covers Louisville for the Crunch Zone. Here to talk about two new Miami Hurricanes who played at Louisville. So Mark's going to provide great insight on them. Also, at the end, we're going to talk about Miami, Louisville. They're going to play each other later this year, first time since 2020. Mark, let's start with Tyler in particular. A lot of excitement. The wide receiver, he did play at Alabama last year, just a couple catches, dealt with a foot injury. But at Louisville, in 2021, had that good season, 18 catches, 523 yards, 6 touchdowns, 29 yards per catch. That's what I want to get into. But just your thoughts on Tyler as a player, spent 4 years there in Louisville.
Yeah, Tyler came into Louisville as a guy who could run. He wasn't a wide receiver when he came to Louisville in 2018. He was a guy that was fast, and they hoped to turn him into a wide receiver. And so it took a lot of work. And then he started just catching a screen, going deep. And he became kind of Malik Cunningham's deep threat. And he was a little bit of the atomic bomb of the offense, seldom used, but when they did use it, it worked. He's a good player. Is he going to be the guy you're going to look for on 3rd and 7? No. But when you get in 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2, kickoff return type stuff, he's the fastest man in football. He really will be. You're not going to have anybody that you're going to play against or anybody on your team that's going to be faster than Tyler Harrell. I just don't think that's possible. I think when he left Louisville, it was a stunner for everybody because he was coming back. He was going to be Malik's number 2 receiver, and he had a really great spring. There was actually a catch in Louisville's 2022 spring game that I'm pretty sure Nick Saban saw and was like, I need that guy. And so it was one of those moments where you're like, man, we really think Tyler's about to be really special and build off this 18 catch, 523 yard season, which is ridiculous. It's like 30 yards a catch. But then he left. He went to Bama, hurt his foot, and never really got on the field for Alabama. I think it's a great place for Tyler to come back to. Miami, being from there, they have good passing game there at Miami. And if we used properly, then you can really find something special with Tyler Harrell, that's for sure.
Hey, you touched on him being from Miami, played at Columbus, a 2018 recruit. I remember, actually creating his profile at 24/7 when he was a young guy, just one of those guys that I've always kind of just paid attention to, and just kind of one of those guys that was really under the radar. Then he gets, the opportunity to go to Louisville there. And, as you mentioned, he kind of has grown. He's gotten better as years have gone on. Then he gets the opportunity at Alabama. There's something you said, Mark, that touched on, something that I want to touch more on that struck me is, he's going to be the fastest guy out there. And just looking at his game logs, that season that he had, touching on that 2021 season, he kind of just did it against everybody. He had a big catches against Clemson, 2 for 76, 100 yards against Virginia. There were some ranked teams in there that he did well against as well. And it seemed like no matter who he was against, he had that potential that you're speaking on. And obviously 18 catches, you're not piling up a bunch of catches in one game, but just that opportunity to strike big. Mark, was there something in particular that you think that essentially that translated in terms of just having that actual speed, 10.37 in the 100, but back when he was in high school, but what he did to essentially maximize himself and maybe his growth, because when he first got there, the production wasn't there, but certainly, that final season it was.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember it was always kind of a spark whenever Tyler was going in. I go back to that 21 season, we're playing at Wake Forest. We ended up losing a game, but his one catch in the game was in the 4th quarter, and it was just a really simple crossing pattern. And he got the safety behind him. And as soon as he had the ball in his hands, you knew it was a touchdown. Getting him into that space was when you could land it was special. Just fast. You couldn't catch him. And he could run. But it's the problem, it was consistency. We really could never get him in a curl and step out of it and get up the field. He had to hit it on the run because everybody knew you had to tackle him straight away. If he gets the ball in his hands and you are chasing him, you're not catching him. So they really honed in on him. So I think as an everyday catcher, not really the type of guy. Clemson did okay against them. Florida State, he was okay. I mean, there are not really very many games at all where you could see he had more than 2 catches. But when he touched the ball, he went far. So I think that's the key is if I'm Mario Cristobal, and I'm about to have Tyler Harrell on my team, I'm going to try to find ways to have him catch over the middle and have a receiver, pop that block as soon as he catches the ball. I'm going to work on that. I'm also going to try to get him deep into the further third and try to get him down the field in the middle of the field. He's not a sideline guy. He's a in between the hash. You throw it up to a spot, he'll run under it and catch it.
And one thing that I think I want to make clear is this works in college. You can have the speed and all of these things. Yeah, like as you mentioned, maybe not that all-around game, but I think that's something for other people to develop or work on, or maybe obviously he's always going to try to get better, but you're trying to be maybe that more all-around guy at the next level. But in college, it can really help your offense. And I think about the time, maybe you can touch on this too, Mark. I think about the times he's not catching the ball, just being on the field, the ability to get downfield to open up space for other guys. And I think with Miami's wide receivers, with what they look for right now, they've just got to have more options. And I think a guy like Tyler, they don't have that speed, as you mentioned, not many people do. But I think just being on the field, providing that threat, and Tyler Van Dyke wants to go downfield. That's something he's done well at Miami, better, 2 years ago, again, 21 than last year, but it's certainly there. And just having Tyler, that capability to do that allows maybe some of their slot guys underneath. But can you touch on that? Miami always wants to go to their tight ends underneath as well. So is there something maybe that you can say about Tyler, maybe just on how it opens up other guys the offense?
Totally. And what Louisville would do is under Satterfield, they would go to Tyler deep early in the game. So they would, in the first quarter, you saw him going deep down the field, trying to split the safeties in that the last third of the field. And what it would do is if it would hit, it would be a touchdown. But then the play action game was there because they had to respect the deep part. So the running game is there. The tight ends, Marshawn Ford ate on that. A lot of guys really were able to benefit. But I think the big benefit for Louisville, because they wanted to run the ball, was, hey, we got to keep these safeties back because Tyler Harrell's on the field. So, he's out there and they're running deep crosses and goes and posts and stuff like that with him all the time. And they're having to account for it basically over and over again. So our running backs were able to kind of, have a little extra space where the safety's not in their business. So it worked by and large. But, I hated to see Tyler go. I mean, he's a player that he was probably about to break out. Unfortunately, he hurt his foot. But I am kind of curious to see what he looks like at Miami. A year at Alabama, kind of got lost in the shuffle. He was hurt. And, Nick Saban was just playing a numbers game. Let me go get 6 or 7 guys and see what works. And then Tyler gets hurt and he gets shuffled out of the deck. I'm curious to see how Tyler does down there at Miami for sure. I think he'll play.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And I think the way the rotation looks, and they've got a lot of unproven guys. We've said this maybe a year ago, the similar standpoint of the season going into the summer, into fall camp, just guys that have to prove themselves. And now they've got their guys that showed flashes last year. Colby Young, obviously the connection with Xavier Restrepo and Jacoby Young. Those 3 guys were their main 3 guys in spring ball. But again, anybody can kind of come in, the way I look at it, and really take these guys' place. This isn't one of these things where Miami's got all these 800-900 yard receivers at Tyler Van Dyke's disposal and they've won a bunch of games. That's not like the situation at all. So I think Tyler going in, and we'll see how things are going in the summer. Are obviously already hearing positive things about how Tyler's done. So that's a good point so far for Miami. But again, fall camp, staying healthy, the foot injury, the whole thing, and providing that spark, that deep threat that Miami's looking to have, obviously, in the passing game. Mark, KJ Cloyd, big news for Miami recently. They get the commitment from KJ Cloyd, a linebacker. Again, 4 years at Louisville, the JUCO year, 22-year-old linebacker. He's been a depth guy, 10 to 15 tackles essentially each year. Special teams guy, a guy with good size. But your thoughts on KJ and maybe what he brings to a team?
Yeah, KJ Cloyd, he's exactly what you just said. He's a depth piece. And he's actually a really good special teams player. He is a physical guy on kickoff return, on punt return, on punt, anything punt related, he's there. He's a guy that could throw a block for you. Wouldn't be surprised if he popped a fumble loose for you guys this year with the way that he hits. But if KJ's playing 10 snaps for you a game on defense, you're probably in a bad spot. linebacker wise. Like, and KJ is going to be fine on goal line, special situations, 4th and 1, trying to get, try to, stuff the run, something like that. You give KJ Cloyd one job, he'll go do it for you. If you need him to cover, do a whole bunch of other stuff, he's probably not the guy that you want to do that for, 80 snaps a game or something like that. But, in special teams, I love him. I think he's a great special teamer and a depth piece. He'll be solid. You won't have to worry about him. I think he's a nice pickup for you guys. It's a good fit. I wish we were able to keep him, but we've brought in a lot of linebackers. We're trying to find our every down kind of guy, and I think KJ was hoping it was going to be here, and because it wasn't, maybe it's time for a fresh start for him. I really don't. I think he's going to play the same role for you guys that he was going to play for us. So we'll see what happens.
And with that, we've talked about him before. Definitely check out the video if you haven't seen it yet. We've talked to Mark about linebackers coach, new linebackers coach, Derek Nicholson, his time at Louisville. KJ was with him.
Right.
So obviously the tie there makes a big difference. Is there anything that you remember Coach Nicholson saying about Cloyd with KJ there that maybe impressed him, or anything in particular that stands out to you?
My guy KJ Cloyd's really quiet, kind of like Coach D Nick is. Like they're both there. Unless it changes under crystal ball, you're not going to get a lot of quotables probably from either one of those guys. But I think KJ he's one of those guys. Like, he's really physical. He's not big. Like, I think, what do they list him at? Like 6'2", 225, something like that. He's probably every bit of that, but he's not going to be a 250-pound guy. He's not going to say a lot. He's not going to screw up. You're not going to have to worry about KJ Cloyd, opening up a lane for a kickoff returner. Like, the job's going to get done, and that's probably all I can really expand on with KJ Cloyd. He's a great depth guy for you guys.
Yeah, a guy, a 2019 recruit out of Columbia, Mississippi, wasn't a ranked guy according to 24/7 Sports and the composite rankings there. You touched on the special teams thing, and I remember when Miami's had good teams, they had guys that essentially embraced that role as good special teams, or even a captain really handling that unit. It's one of those under the radar units when it comes to coverage. Obviously, about their kick returners, punt returners, they get all the headlines, but just a guy out there, as you mentioned, in the right spot. And I know, even though fans, even myself as a reporter, we don't always put a lot of attention to special teams coverage and all those things. But I'm telling you, inside the walls, coaches put a lot of emphasis on either play calls or coverage calls. They're always looking for something. It's something that's not really talked about, but I know coaches really value it. And having a guy on special teams like KJ, I think is a benefit for any team. But what is it about him on special teams that, for him to embrace that role and excel in it? Obviously guys want to be on the field as much as possible, particularly on defense with KJ's standpoint, but for him to take on that role like he's done, what do you think that says about him, and maybe some things that he has said about special teams?
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from contact. You're going to see him, if it's kickoff return, he'll probably, pop open a block for you, and you'll be like, who made that block? You'll be looking down your roster being like, oh, that's Cloyd. That's the guy from Louisville. Or he'll go down there and make a play, and guys looking like he's about to cut from like the 17-yard line for, going to cut to the 30, and there's KJ Cloyd making the play, shedding a blocker, making the tackle. He does not shy away from contact in space. And I think a lot of times in special teams, when you get these full-on running collisions, it takes kind of a special guy that's willing to take a guy with a 40-yard head start, and then you're going to, have this collision with one another. KJ Cloyd's not scared of that. And I think that's really what it is. He also be going for the ball. I don't know off the top of my head how many forced fumbles he had, but I mean, he was close on a bunch, and I think he even got a couple like recoveries. So he's around the ball. He's not afraid of contact. He's a physical player. I mean, you'll like him for that.
And he's a guy that's played over 10 games in each of the last 3 seasons. So you like that availability for a guy that he's been able to be available for you. So maybe some, as you mentioned, some big play potential from KJ in the special teams coverage there, or even blocking. So that's good to see. Mark, you always provide great insight. And while I have you, Miami's going to play Louisville this year, November 18th, late in the season there. First time they're playing since 2020. Miami's won the last two meetings, and they're going to be playing this year at Hard Rock Stadium. Mark, I just want to ask you kind of a quick question, maybe something you're looking at, or maybe a point of emphasis for Louisville this summer going into fall camp, or maybe an area of their game that you feel like they really got to improve on. And I'm going to give something on from a Miami standpoint as well. But your thoughts there on this summer for Louisville?
Yeah, two things. Offensively, they're changing from a run-based offense to a pass-based offense with Jeff Brom. So how that transition goes early in the season is going to determine how many games they win. They got a former Jeff Brom quarterback who was at Purdue, went to Cal, and now is at Louisville, Jack Plummer. So he's familiar with the system. And I think we feel pretty good about the pieces that we have offensively to turn into our pass, but it's got to all come together. So that's on offense. Defensively, we're replacing Yaya Diaby, Yasir Abdullah, and Monty Montgomery. So a lot of what Louisville fans are thinking is like, where's the pressure coming from? Where are we going to be able to get in the backfield, get TFLs, get sacks, move the quarterback off his spot, things like that. That's the big question for Louisville coming in. They have a great secondary, I think. They got Storm Duck coming in from North Carolina, second team All-ACC last season. He came in. They already had Marcus Riley and Jarvis Brownlee from Florida State. So they've got some really nice pieces in the secondary. So they might even be able to get some coverage sacks, but eventually somebody's got to get back there. And we don't know who that person's going to be right now. Hopefully somebody steps up, but for the moment, it's not as clear as it was a year ago when we said, we know Yaya, we know Monty, we know Yasir are going to be back there doing that work, but we don't know who that's going to be right now.
And speaking of a year ago, and that's what I'll talk about with Miami, Tyler Van Dyke back at quarterback. We said this last year. He was looking to build on that 21 season. He did not do that. Had dealt with some injuries, but when he was healthy, he was not as productive. And I think that's, for me, is the big thing for Miami going into fall camp this summer, getting the passing game back on track, new offensive coordinator in Shannon Dawson. They're saying all the right things about what, the improvements, but we'll see. Tyler in the passing game with Tyler Harrell now involved, they've got to be better. Simply put, they've got to be better in the passing game. Miami 5 wins last year, so there's a lot of areas they've got to get better at. But I'm going to stick with, I was only going to do one, but something that caught me too with what you were saying, Mark. I think Miami in the secondary is very interesting. Last year, All-American Cam Kitchens at safety, former 5-star recruit, a 2-year starter, James Williams next to him, 2 draft picks at cornerback, and Miami gave up a ton of passing yards, a lot of big plays. So, something didn't add up. For whatever it was. So Miami's got to be better in the back, different personnel at the cornerback position. Safeties are back. We'll see how everything kind of translates there. They do have their defensive backs coach Jamal Adai back. Miami does have a lot of assistant coaches that have been replaced, but Adai is back. So Mark, I appreciate it. Great insight on Louisville, all these players, and it's always great talking to you. So I'll let you get going.
I love it. Yeah, I'll be down in Miami for our November 18th game. I really look forward to getting down back to Hard Rock Stadium. Hopefully it doesn't rain on us this time. But no, look forward to that series. I'm glad we're going to get to play every year. It gives me a reason to go to South Beach every other year. So I'm happy for that.